Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar calling it Stay Ahead of the Application Game. I'm joined today with my wonderful colleague, Amy Terrell. Amy, would you like to say hello? Oh, maybe she's having a little technical difficulty. Well, let's get started. One of the things that we thought in particular that was important to talk about today was basically navigating the Common Application and how to manage your timeline. So for a little bit of humor, obviously, parents tend to get very, very anxious around this process. Students are either very nervous or somewhat oblivious. And so our goal today really is to help you understand some clear steps you can take starting right now to make this process a little more stress-free and much more manageable. So, what is the secret, right, to staying ahead on college applications? Well, first, I believe it starts with communication. At home, right, students and parents all need to be on the same page. This can be helpful in terms of just navigating the process in general, but also in terms of, are we clear on what our college application list might be? Are we clear on the finances involved in applications and a college attendance? And what are the strategies we might employ when applying, such as early decision, early action, regular, or rolling? Each one of those comes with some requirements involved. I apologize. My screen would not, my cursor froze. At school, of course, making sure your school counselor or advisor is also on the same page with you, because there are some requirements in applications that the student will rely on the school to submit. What pieces of the application does the school submit? Typically the transcript, the teacher letters, recommendations, a school profile perhaps, and the college or the counselor's letter of recommendation. So making sure that you know how to ask your school to submit, and making sure the counselor knows what your plan is will obviously help you stay a little more organized. Speaking of organization, creating a spreadsheet, a notebook, a giant Post-it note, whatever works for you. I'm a Post-it note queen. I have them all over the place. Make sure you have some system to stay organized. The college application process is very tedious and very confusing. You'll have a lot of dates and sometimes multiple dates for individual applications. So please make sure you're staying on top of each one of those items, due dates for applications, when and how to send your scores, and when extra essays may be coming out and how to submit those. Dedication, of course, you really, really have to be wholeheartedly invested in this process, but most importantly, you need to budget time. This is crucial. Summer is a very relaxed time. Families have trips, students have camps and fun with friends. Our recommendation is that you schedule time on a calendar, little bits of time, break the work into small steps, and I promise you will feel much better starting today than when you go to submit applications for those early application deadlines, which are typically in early November. So Amy, thank you for popping in. And now she's going to cover the next few slides for us.
Yeah, so what we're going to talk about are some of the components of the application and what actually goes into it. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper in each one of these topics. But the first is your academic record, which is the grades you earned, the courses you have taken, the rigor of your transcript, etc. Also, we'll talk a little bit about testing, ACT and SAT. We'll discuss activities both in and outside of school. and what they say about you, what colleges will be looking for there. And also the final component is your essays. I know this is a big component that we'll spend a lot of time on in the process. So we're going to talk about that as well. And then next slide, Andrea. Okay, and then we also want to talk about the key elements of the application that you need to be thinking about now. And all of our students are thinking about these three things. So what is on your school list? I'm sure this will be an evolving process over the next couple months, but which schools do you plan to apply to? The second element is the narrative, which comes to life throughout your application, but particularly in your essays. And that's really just your story and how you tell it. So we'll dive a little deeper on that. And then finally is the application itself. The Common App, the UC applications, the Georgetown applications, wherever you're applying, getting started on actually filling out those applications and making sure you have all you need to fill them out completely as early as possible. Okay, so, and I think we covered this. These are the two frameworks we're going to be diving a little deeper on in the next couple slides. Okay, and Andrea, I think you were going to discuss the academic section.
Yes, so thank you. So academics are obviously an important part of any application. Colleges say one of the first things they look at when you apply is your transcript. So it's important to do as well as you can. The fall of senior year will be the last chance to really demonstrate sort of upward trend or rigor. So make sure if you haven't selected your courses for senior year yet, that you're keeping this in mind. Colleges like to see an upward trend, right, over your 4 years of high school, if possible. The first grading term of your senior year is important. It very likely could be submitted with your application as part of that, whether that's first quarter or first trimester. This is something that you just want to be sure that you're starting off senior year on a strong foot and do as well as you can. Time management obviously is important, and this is a big challenge. If this is not your strong suit, I really, really encourage you to find ways, engage with others if that's helpful, but make a plan. Again, break the work down into small tidbits, because in the fall, you're going to need to stay on top of both your academic work, of course, your application work, and then all the other fun things that come along with just being a senior. So recommendations, part of this sort of academic record are typically 2, sometimes 3, but typically 2 academic teacher recommendations. You will likely ask 2 grade 11 teachers. Those are the teachers who had the most recent, longest academic history with you. And they should, for the most part, come from academic core courses. So imagine math, science, English, history, social science, languages, those kinds of core courses. There are always exceptions to this, so please talk to your school counselor if you have any concerns or questions about who you might ask for those recommendations. I like to tell students that it's really who knows you best. You don't necessarily have to have the A in the class to ask the teacher. Maybe you've grown so much in a skill in that class, and the teacher will really highlight that. Maybe you had a hurdle early on in the year and you really recovered and shot up, to your full potential in the class. Those can make wonderfully warm and anecdotal letters. So don't shy away from asking a teacher who really, really knows you, but you might not have the best grade in. Now, testing, of course, that's a big question mark. During the pandemic, everybody was test optional. In recent months, it's clear that colleges are looking back towards using testing in their process. Many, many, many are still remaining test optional, but it's, in our opinion, a good idea to research that clearly. But also, if you have a test that is strong and represents your record, it's good to have it. So we think having your testing sort of finished, whether that's ACT or SAT, by the end of the summer this year, before senior year, Obviously, there are test dates throughout the fall and even into winter of senior year, which might be viable options depending on the timing of your applications. Now, the PSAT, which probably many of you have taken, is not actually used in applications. That's not submitted by your high school nor you. And the key piece for the PSAT is if you happen to score at a very high percentage, you might reach what's called National Merit Semifinalist. And you would find that out in the fall of your senior year. If you do, this might qualify you for some scholarships offered by the National Merit Scholarship Program. They're in partnership with the PSAT. So if you are an amazing test taker and you did really well on your PSAT in grade 11, you might want to look this up and see if you might qualify for some scholarships at some schools. Obviously, testing in the ACT and the SAT are the common ones. If you have not yet, you should decide right away which test format is your best one. Colleges do not care at all which format you submit. So really, whichever format you are the most comfortable with is the one you should select. There are summer dates still available, and again, some fall dates early in the senior year. As I said earlier, if you have some January or February application deadlines, later dates in the senior year are certainly possible to use for those applications. For your test prep, now you can do this on your own. There are free resources. There are lots of wonderful companies out there who offer group and individual test prep sessions. You can still get some prep in and make the July ACT or the August SAT if you act right away. So after this webinar, jump off and look at those dates and see if you can get yourself registered for one of those tests. Now, if you have accommodations in your school for any type of learning difference, this does not automatically transfer over to the ACT or the SAT. So this is an important note, and the two companies handle it differently. So please be in touch with your school counselor in regards of what steps you need to take to apply for those accommodations if you need those for either the ACT or the SAT.
All right.
Activities in school.
Activities in school, a very important section of any application. And Andrea has covered the more quantitative parts of an application, slightly more objective elements like your grades and your test scores. But once you get to the activities section in an application, it is an opportunity to share a little bit more about who you are as a human. And that ties into what we sometimes refer to as your narrative or your story. So oftentimes the activity list that you submit says a lot about what you value, what you're interested or curious about. It's an opportunity to kind of share what you've learned and how you've grown and evolved as a participant in those activities. A lot of times we talk about leadership as being, maybe the president of a club or, the captain of a team, but leadership opportunities are absolutely everywhere. And how I like to think about leadership is really just making a positive impact in whatever you do. And that could mean really helping someone get through a class that they're struggling in by tutoring them. That could mean having a really great idea in a club you're involved in and, acting on that idea that makes it better for everyone involved. Or maybe it's about changing the culture on a team that, maybe your lacrosse team is everyone's very kind of individualistic, but you want, everyone to be united together and have a better team dynamic, and you make that happen on the team. That is leadership. There's so many ways to demonstrate it. So you can definitely think out of the box on that. And as you think about your narrative, like one way, if you're getting kind of stuck on thinking about how to tie all those elements together, how to look at your activity list list or your resume and say, like, what are some common threads and what does this mean and how does this tell my story? Sometimes you could just take a step back and think about a couple words or phrases that you might use to describe yourself, or friends or teachers might use, and how have you demonstrated those attributes in your activities, both in school and outside of school? And that might kind of get your thoughts started. And then, of course, activities are not exclusive to your school activities. There are a million ways to make a positive impact outside of school as well. And that's really about, like, what have you done to make your community better? And that could be through volunteering, it could be through activism or advocacy, it could be through mentoring, and definitely, think beyond the traditional elements of what you might consider activities, right? It could be, you could demonstrate leadership or make a positive impact in your job. Maybe you're really dedicated to your church, or maybe you take a really active role in your family where you're sort of the head sibling, babysitting and taking care of your younger siblings and helping them get through their homework. And, all of that is fair game. And whatever you do to kind of make a situation better and help whatever community you're involved in, is wonderful to share, and colleges will love to hear about. Okay, so we are jumping to the college list here. One of the main things you'll be thinking about this summer, and we always like to say that aim for the best fit, not the best name. And it's very easy to get caught up in rankings and which colleges sound prestigious. But what we really want for all of our students is to put them in a college where they can really thrive, where you can be your best self, where you're open to exploring and learning and getting involved. And that really means finding schools that have the common threads that are meaningful to you. And that just doesn't mean just top schools. That means like your reach schools that have really low admissions rates, schools that are really good matches that, you think you have a really good chance of getting into, and then schools that, are definitely schools that are the perfect academic fit for you, and you will have no problem getting into those schools. So a balanced list is key. But when you're looking at fit, we really want you to think about what attributes matter to you, like what kind of academic programs are you looking for? If you're really excited about sports journalism, you might want to dive a little deeper into the programs that some schools offer to make sure that you can really engage in that to the fullest extent. You might be more of a generalist that just wants to use the opportunity to explore your academic options. So maybe a program like that would be a better fit. Location is a big factor for a lot of people. Some people want to go where it's warm. Some students want to stay close to home. Some can't wait to, live in another part of the country. You just have to figure out what that means to you. That also extends to size, to the cost of the program, not only the tuition, but what is housing like? Is a really expensive city where you have to find your own housing? That's something to think about, as well as, do you have to buy heavy coats and winter boots? And are the plane tickets expensive? All of those elements are important. And then think about the kind of experience you want to have in college. Will you be able to pursue your interests and perhaps explore new ones? Do you want a school with a big Greek system and a big football program where you can go and tailgate and experience, that kind of school spirit and sports mentality, which is so fun? Do you want a really academically competitive environment? Does that really help you do your best? Do you want to be in a big city or a small town or a rural community where everyone knows each other and you're really immersed in that community? So many great factors to think about.
So the college list, right? This is an important piece. And there are many tools. If you don't know where to start, how to start, there are many tools available. Perhaps your high school uses a platform called Naviance or Score or Maya Learning. Those are some common ones that high schools utilize. These tools can help you find schools and evaluate how the likelihood of admission based on statistics and data from your school. But there are some other resources out there. College Kickstart is an excellent one. And the free service Big Future is actually a really useful tool in inputting your own personal criteria, hopes and wishes, and then it generates a research list for you. And I have found that it's easy to use for students and parents, and it's a great easy tool to use. And of course, there are lots of books out there. You'll probably be overwhelmed with the number of college search books out there, but a couple that we like a lot. One, in terms of thinking about schools beyond just a name, is the Fisk Guide to Colleges. So this resource, you can look up a particular college and it will list the several overlapping schools with similar student life, similar academics, and they cross over in applications very commonly. So it might open your mind to some other ideas. If you like Bucknell, you may find 3 or 4 other schools that are very similar and cross apps with Bucknell that might be helpful in thinking of the sort of stretch reach schools, the good match, and the more likely colleges on your list. And a wonderful read for anyone interested in the college process is a book by Frank Bruni called Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be. And I think all of us as adults understand that we change and grow so much throughout our lives that the college decision of where you matriculate, it's more about what you do with your experience there than the name on, right, the bumper sticker. And so there are a lot of ways to be wonderfully healthy and successful in your life at basically any college in the country. So our goal really is to encourage you to just make the most of wherever you are, and that will serve you well. So this summer, right, here we are, summer of 2024. Obviously, we said earlier, picking some challenging courses for senior year, if that's not already in place, is a good idea. If you've done some testing, evaluate your results. You might need to change strategy over the summer, shift gears a little bit, and decide on a possible second or third test attempt later this summer or early in the fall. Most high school students I have worked with take it a minimum of 2 times, and that's really because of something called score choice. You can super score, right? You're taking the better pieces of one test and adding them to the better pieces of a different test and creating a super scored composite score. But I have lots of students who take it a third, sometimes even fourth date. You don't want to dedicate your entire life to practicing for these tests because you have many things to present in the application process. But know that you want to think clearly about what your plan and what your goal is and do your best to hit that target. Your school activities. So in the fall of senior year, this is sort of the last opportunity to step up, maybe volunteer, maybe run for an office, take a little risk, put yourself out there, because that will still be part of your application. So don't shy away from trying something new or stepping up in something you're already involved with right off the bat in the senior year. This summer, outside school activities, as Amy mentioned earlier, there are a lot of things that colleges accept and consider. Maybe you've never had the responsibility of a job, and so get yourself a part-time summer job. Maybe you can contact someone local and maybe do some shadowing or internship work. If not, then there are lots of organizations in your area that need service support. So even consider spending a little time this summer doing some community service. But moving into the most helpful application piece of this is, of course, the common application, which is what we're talking about today for the most part. There are other application formats, as Amy alluded to. But for the Common App, you can create your account right now. The Common App itself still believes it's in the current high school year. But you can create your account today, enter all the personal data information, and on August 1st, the Common App will roll over to your senior year. So don't worry, you won't have to redo anything. Everything you create for the most part now on the basic account will roll over and still be there after August 1. So we recommend go ahead, create that account, and go ahead and enter some colleges into your My Colleges list in your Common App account. This will be important as you're on your own researching colleges and narrowing the list. Kind of get close to the final list. If you're pretty sure you'll be applying to some schools, go ahead and enter those into your Common App account. You can always delete them, that can always be changed, but you want the schools that you're primarily focusing on in your Common App account. And there are lots of reasons why, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So in addition to creating your Common App account, you really, really want to start brainstorming those Common App essay topics. The essay topics are out already right now for your senior year. And so take a look at those, read through them, start brainstorming which one or two topics sound the best to you, really you have the most to write about, and begin a little outline. Begin bullet pointing some thoughts to help you write your first draft. This is important because, and we'll talk about this timeline in just a few slides, you have time now in June and July to work on the Common App essay with no other essays sort of in the mix. After August 1, there'll be other application essays that we'll talk about that you will also have to tackle. And so we want you to spread your work out throughout the summer. And a little tip from the pros is avoid too many cooks in the kitchen on your essays. Really keep it to one trusted adult, a parent, a teacher, your advisor. The more people who read your essays and drafts, the more opinions you will have and the more confused you will be. So try to keep that to a minimum. Everybody wants what's best for you, but the more opinions you have, the harder that is to navigate. So as I mentioned, start brainstorming and drafting the Common App personal statement now. Amy and I have both been talking about this. Time management is sort of key, right, throughout this whole process to maintain your sanity. But keep this timeline in mind in particular. So the Common App, again, has already published the prompts for your senior year, the class of 2025. The Common App will roll over to your class on August 1st. That August 1st date is key because that's when the individual colleges begin populating their own essay questions into the Common App account. So if you apply to 7 or 8 colleges, each one of those colleges could have 1 or 2 or 3 of their own supplemental questions. They're typically shorter. The Common App essay is a 650-word essay. Supplements are usually 250 to 350 words. But if each school you apply to has 2 of those, you can see the multiplication working here and the time expanding on what you will need to spend on essay writing. So you have right now, June and July, to work on the Common App essay and check that item off your to-do list. Because August, September, and October, you will really need that time to brainstorm, draft, and edit all of the remaining supplemental essay questions that you will have for those early fall application deadlines. So again, use your time wisely. We beg of you to do this. Really, the essay objective, and Amy and I hear this frequently, like I want to write about a really important topic. And what college admissions offices will tell you is they want your voice, your teenage voice, to shine through. They want it to be authentic. They know you are a 16 or 17-year-old high school student. And so please, please trust your own voice in this process. We want your essay to say, this is who I am, what I've learned, this is how I show up every day of my life. We don't want this to be a repetitive listing of your activity list, your resume. That's not helpful for the admissions process. And we do not want your essay to feel like it's too forced on a topic that does not feel fun or funny or serious to you. Colleges, amazingly, as many of these essays as they read, they can really pinpoint when an essay really connects with them and feels authentic. So please put all of those stressors aside and just write in your own voice. And we promise you, you'll be better off for it.
Hey, so the Common App. The Common App is a great way to use your summer. And what I always tell students is check off all of those boxes you can before August 1st, when Common App goes live for every college in the country. Before you start school, before you're inundated with supplemental essays, make sure you get your transcript from school. List out all of your academic honors and awards, and do your activity list. That includes not just your activities in school, but out of school. Test score results. So if you know that the colleges you're applying to want you to submit your test scores, make sure you're set up to do that, and send those scores to the colleges that need them. There's going to be some information about your parents that they require. So ask them now, get the information now, because you don't
So
want it to be October 30th and wondering what year your mom graduated from college. You want to make sure you have all of that filled in now while you can. It's easy. It's busy work. It's just so nice to have that checked off your list before things get really, really busy in the fall. And as Andrea mentioned earlier, you can create your account now, which currently, this is June, we're in early mid-June right now. The Common App is reflective of the 2023-2024 application cycle, because some colleges are still accepting applications at this point, but it will roll over, and all the information you put into the main Common App will roll right over with you. So you do not have to worry about losing your data or having to re-enter it. It'll be there for you. And then, as Andrea mentioned, once August 1st roll around, you can add your colleges to the application. And not only do they have supplemental essays in each individual college application, there's an actual application form, and sometimes those can be kind of involved. So the sooner you can just get that off your to-do list, the better. There's some basic questions they want you to answer. Sometimes they ask you to repeat information that's in the Common App. Whatever it is, just take a look and see what you can check off the list now. So you can save your free time for writing, thinking, brainstorming about supplemental essays. And then you may need to invite your school counselor and teacher recommendations. Every high school does this differently. So make sure you check in with the college counseling office to understand how your school does it. And then you can also invite a parent or other trusted adult to view your application for you and help you proofread. We want to make sure all those T's are crossed and I's are dotted. So it's great to have someone else in there reviewing for you.
absolutely. And Amy, I'll just add a quick note here that the Common App actually has a really handy how-to guide. And so as you're creating the account, students, you can literally find their how to fill out the Common App guide, and it will walk you through each of these sections and answer any of the sort of frequently asked questions. So you can take a look at that as well.
Right. So some final helpful tips. Andrea mentioned this a lot before, but give yourself time. And that's why we say, do everything you can now. Just check it off the list, and then make a schedule and kind of stick to that. Budget time. Say, okay, this month I am going to work on my personal statement and aim to get it done by, July 31st. And just stick to that, because the process can be extremely overwhelming. There is so much to do. So we like to just take it in baby steps. And the sooner you start, the easier and less overwhelming it's going to be. Andrea mentioned this when she was talking about essays, but be authentic. colleges don't want you to be who they think they want them to be. They want to know who you really are, as a human, what makes you tick, any little detail that brings you to life. That's what they really want to know, even if it doesn't seem, fancy or prestigious, that's okay. They just want to know who you are. And when you think of your application packet, it's kind of good to think of it as a puzzle. And when colleges review applications, they always say we review them holistically. And that means looking at, what kind of town you grew up in, who your family is, um, where you went to high school, the grades you got in your scores, your activities, anything that kind of makes you who you are, they want to know about. And any component of the application where you can bring that to life in a new way is a great way to approach the application. Do not rely on spell check. We mentioned this earlier. Proofread, proofread, proofread.
Yes.
Ask your trusted adult to proofread. One really, really helpful tool that I love in the Common App is the ability to print a PDF of your application. And you can just scan through that. It's just a different format, kind of puts you in a different mindset. And you can read through that, have someone else read through it to make sure everything looks as you intended. And then make sure, as you're adding all the individual colleges to your Common App, make sure you understand what each of them are requiring of you. Some colleges require you to complete a self-reported academic record. Some require interviews. Some want you to submit videos. Some want you to submit test scores directly through College Board or the ACT. Some colleges want peer reviews. So understand what it is that your college is asking for and make sure that you are checking off every single box for that college. And then most importantly, apply as much as you can before the deadline. You want to avoid any technical issues. You want to make sure you have everything you need. You don't want to get almost ready to submit at 11:59 p.m. and realize there's something you don't have. So, we recommend at least a week if you can, at the very least 2 or 3 days before the deadline.
Excellent, excellent recommendation. So we have really enjoyed our time talking with you. You may visit our website at ESM. We have lots of available resources there if you'd like any particular follow-up. Amy, I'd like to thank you for joining me today and your wise comments and your wonderful personality really added a lot to our discussion. So thank you for that. And thank you all for joining us today. We hope you have a great summer, and juniors, rising seniors, good luck to you. Take care.